When hope is gone, undo this lock and send me forth on a moonlit walk. Release restraint level 0. Hey kids, wanna see a dead body?
Hi guys, and this is the Void of the Ravenclaw. Welcome back to another fan fiction story. If you like this type of content, smash the like button and subscribe for future updates that I do post on my community tab frequently. As we continue our story with Cassandra and Scarlet sneaking around the boundaries of the mansion slash compound, stealthily getting behind the guards on lookout by piercing their heart with silver short swords, killing them instantly as they turned to ash as their remains was scattered to the winds. Scarlet and Cassandra nod at each other and separate to kill the remaining lookouts around the compound. Every Blood Knight has access to silver weapons. Choice in a silver weapon is ultimately their decision, but all Blood Knights are required to wield some sort of silver weapon. It's mandatory. They wear special gloves when they're handling such weapons. The vampires in silver has much of a weakness towards them than they would towards a werewolf. But because they're purebloods, they're somewhat immune. Not to the extent of their leader Izuku, but they do have somewhat immunity to the metal. While they're taking out the remaining vampires on lookout, Izuku is going on a killing spree by shooting out his black bone shards, decaying vampire after vampire. Men, women, it didn't matter. He was going to give them a true death. No prisoners, no survivors, just death. Izuku is not enjoying this, not one bit. They're a threat to the vampire species in a whole, and they need to be eliminated. He doesn't take pleasure in this, but it needs to be done. If it needs to be done right, let me try this again. It needs to be done, and it needs to be done right. As a group of vampires come running out of the mansion, charging towards Izuku. Izuku got in a wild stance, with his feline claws extended. Then the ground underneath him crack when he finally charged, making after images of himself. He appeared above one of them and slammed his head into the ground, then proceed to kick the vampire while he was down. While in midair, he jammed his claws into his chest, ripping out his heart as he skid to a stop. The other vampires barely didn't notice that. Well, they couldn't keep track of the pierce speed. Izuku gently dropped the heart as it fell to the ground as the remaining group of vampires charged forward. Izuku dropped to all fours in a animalistic stance and charged. He simply flickered when he reappeared right behind him. You can see Izuku holding several hearts in his hands as all of the vampires fall dead to the ground, as their bodies slowly begin to turn to ash. Izuku walked up to the front entrance to the mansion and forcefully kicked the door open. Izuku created black bone scythe that will decay anyone once it made contact. As the vampire Neko began slaughtering every single vampire in the mansion, killing anyone on sight, until the whole mansion was completely dead quiet. Scarlet and Cassandra approached their leader as they kneeled down right in front of him, as they could clearly see the ringleader of this little clan of vampires pinned to a wall with a black bone stake jammed into his chest, as is clearly evidence that the body is being slowly decaying away. Orders, sir. Since survivors eliminate them and leave no evidence, I want this place completely eradicated. Cleanse the whole area. Will be done, master. Izuku walked out of the mansion to let Cassandra and Scarlet do their work. A few minutes later, you could see a burning mansion. Then a humongous beam of light hit the entire mansion and surrounding area, made out of pure magic power. When the flash ended, there was nothing but a humongous crater, leaving no signs of the vampire ever existed in this area. Izuku tossed the journal towards his commander of the Blood Knights. What's this, sir? These are all the personal log of the ringleader of this vampire group that we just eradicated. It records every interaction they've ever had with vampire and human alike. I want this list to be eradicated. They know too much, leave no survivors. These humans must remain ignorant of our existence. If you have to kill an entire family to do so, so be it. What about the vampires that they made contact with? Kill them. Anyone that willingly associated with this group can't be saved. Cleanse them as well. I shed no pity to traitors. We'll take care of it, sir. This might be harsh, Scarlet, but it's necessary. I know, sir, we have certain laws in place so humanity doesn't learn of our existence. Leave it up to you if you have to kill entire human families. To your discretion. As the two female Blood Knights disappeared into the shadows when they stepped backwards, as you can see Izuku back in his city, in his personal garden. As you can see, all the flowers and plants are black. Even the trees in the garden have black leaves. The difference between these trees and the trees on the surface is these trees are extremely dangerous to any species besides vampires. They have the ability to drain blood once someone makes physical contact. I forgot to mention that was the end of the flashback, destroying that compound full of vampires. So just make sure you don't get confused. because I forgot to write it in here. My apologies. Apologies for interrupting you, my lord, as Scarlet appeared right in front of Izuku on one knee. It's quite alright, Scarlet. What do you have for me? Just got word a local werewolf pack has sent word as she hand over a letter addressed to Izuku. Izuku took the letter and looked over the contents that was written down. It seems like the Silver Moon Pack has been having skinwalker problems, or changelings. Changelings, but aren't werewolves considered changelings themselves? Werewolves and changelings are two different type of species. That's just a folklore that the Indian tribes like to spread. The Native American Indian tribes like to spread around. It's utter nonsense, really. How many of my blood knights are you going to take, Master? None, Scarlet. I'm personally going to take care of this. Sir, I just can't simply allow you to go by yourself. You'll be unprotected. Your mother was very clear that I must protect you at all times. If a single hair of you were damaged, she would kill me. Relax. I'll be bringing my sister along. I haven't seen her for quite some time. I have no doubt Mother will start nagging at me if I prolong this any further. Understood, sir. Good. While I'm away, you're in charge, Victoria. Scarlet was surprised. She didn't even feel Victoria's presence. As you wish. I'll keep the city safe while in your absence, my lord. I have no doubt you will know. I have no doubt you will. Now you might excuse me. I have to get in touch with my sister as he walked to his personal office and activated the huge magical mirror that is in his office. As an image of his sister appeared, he could have mentally contacted her, but he likes to use magic. He doesn't like to abuse their mental link. Out of respect. It's you, brother. It's been quite a while since we've spoken last. I hope everything's been alright. Everything's fine, sister. The local werewolf pack, that calls themselves the Silver Moon Pack, have been having issues with changelings. I figured I would offer you to accompany me during this little mission of mine. Say no more. I'll be there in the next 30 minutes. As Izumi has a bright smile on her face, she cut the connection. Not even 15 minutes later, you can see Izumi stepping into the office, giving her little brother a gentle hug. Or hug. She has no interest in the werewolves or the changelings. She's just here to spend time with her brother. If she has to kill a bunch of changelings to do so, and it's worth it, having some quality time with her little brother. He's been so busy nowadays, so she's a bit irritated, but she understands her little brother has responsibilities. And she's had some dealings with this specific werewolf pack before. The Alpha became a good friend of hers. She knows that Izuku's had interacted with that pack, but he's never interacted with their Alpha yet. The viewpoint of them slowly changed over the years. He's more polite and tolerant towards them, but he still dislikes them because they're canines. It's just his feline instincts to dislike all canines. Izuku shifted into his cat form and jumped into his sister's arms, while she made a magical circle underneath them as they disappear from the city of the biggest population of vampires. They reappeared somewhere in the forest, on the surface. It seems like I might have overshot it. We're off course just a tad bit. Oops. I know this forest. We're not too far away. I might not have interacted with these werewolves a whole lot, but I do recognize the forest that they make their home. Brother and sister made their way towards the werewolf encampment. When they arrived, they could see several werewolves injured as they're trying to put out the fire on several of their cabins. Izumi is well known in this wolf pack, so they didn't give her a second glance as she made her way over to the pack house, where the pack house where the leader of the pack resides, the Alpha. She's a very attractive female alpha. Unlike churn werewolves, pureblood werewolves, aka Lycans, have more renowned canine features like dog ears on top of their head and elongated, more pronounced canine teeth in their mouth. Simple features you could definitely tell from a pureblood werewolf and a churn werewolf just by the fact that they have ears on top of their head. Alice, the alpha of the Silvermoon pack, noticed her vampire friend enter the meeting hall of their pack house. She immediately greeted her friend, Izumi. "What are you doing here?" "Ask for my assistance in your little changeling problem. I had my sister tag along because you two have a history with each other." I was a bit surprised by the talking house cat that Izumi's holding. Izuku jumped out of his sister's arms, and in mid-flight, he shifts back into his normal state as she sees a vampire with cat ears and cat pupils, as she clearly could see the slit eyes in his red eyes. And she could see the black, long cat tail waving around back and forth. "I've had some dealing with your pack before, but we've not actually officially met yet. I am Izuku Midoriya, the younger brother of Izumi here. Pleasure, I'm Alice, the alpha of the Silvermoon pack. Please, follow me. We have much to discuss." As Alice led the two vampires into a separate room that she used for more serious meetings. As she closed the door, immediately afterwards she activated the magic concealing circle to keep their conversation between the three of them, just for precaution. She knows her pack is quite curious, so she doesn't want them to overhear anything in case some of the youngster members of her pack goes off to get themselves killed. Alice might be a young alpha, but she's experienced in battle and how to run a pack properly. She was trained to do this since she was a lad girl, so she's well prepared to take the role as the alpha. Izuku and Izumi sat down as Alice described the attack with great detail. As we cut to several hours before the attack on the Silvermoon pack, in a flashback, Alice has finally got her pack on track. Their pack is no longer fighting with the local vampires that are in the area. She's even developed a friendship with a vampire named Izumi Midoriya. For vampires, the Midoriyas are very strange, but extremely friendly. Oddly enough, they're not the typical vampire that she has dealt with before. Most vampires are arrogant and have some sort of steep hatred of her kind, but with the Midoriyas, they're completely different. They're quite similar to other old vampire family, the Roseals. They're friendly enough, but if you cross them too far, the Midorias can be quite vicious and cruel. Suddenly, Alice heard several large explosions as she rushed out of the pack house to see several buildings on fire, as she sees changelings attacking her people. They're pure gray creatures with black eyes. The odd thing about them, they were carrying silver crossbows. That's not the normal weaponry that changelings usually have. Want to use silver crossbows, and that's troubling by itself. Alice gathered her pack and began to counterattack the changelings. The changelings didn't seem here to come to perform a frontal attack. They were just using guerrilla tactics. Then immediately they ran off, leaving Alice to deal with the aftermath instead of pursuing them. She decided to take care of the fires and the injuries. She knows better to rush off in battle without getting the full depth of the situation and the flashback. What do you think, brother? I find it curious that these skinwalkers, or changelings, no matter how you want to phrase them, were using silver weapons. That is curious. Silver is hard to locate, and finding someone that actually has the knowledge to forge them into weapons is much rare. Much like my Blood Knights, it's mandatory to wield silver weapons, but the process of making it is very complex. The weapons we use are not your everyday silver weaponry that you can simply craft. It's very complex, involving magic. Do you happen to have any of the silver arrows they use in the attack by the crossbows? I stored one away just for that very reason, as she picked up an arrow that was laying on one of the side tables in the room. As she put on some gloves before handling the arrow, and placed it right in front of Izuku. She has immunity to silver, much like Izuku, but she doesn't want to get her hand burned regardless, so she used gloves. Izumi picked up the arrow without wearing any gloves, getting a panicked look from Alice. Relax, I have a very high resistance to silver. And she's holding the silver arrow for a little bit. It'll take a little bit for the silver arrow to actually harm me. Izumi examined the arrow very closely. Suddenly, her eyes narrowed. Take a look at this, brother. Izuku took the arrow from his sister when she handed it over to him, as he examined it very closely with calculated expression on his face. This is definitely a hunter arrow. That magic rune that's placed on the arrow is definitely the sigil of a hunter family. This is clearly hunter magic. Such methods of magic are meant to kill werewolves and vampire alike, because we share similar weaknesses. The magic they perform, or how they use it, is very unknown to us vampires. That's the very reason why my kind are so determined to keep our existence away from humanity. The question is, what is Skinwalkers doing with hunter arrows to begin with? And I'm taking a wild guess. The crossbows they're also using are most likely hunter-made as well. You were right to bring this to my attention. I know you werewolves like to keep everything in-house. It must not have been easy for you to ask us, vampires, for some assistance. Would have kept it in between the pack, but I'm not stupid. I know how powerful the Midoriya family are, and we're just a small pack out of a couple hundred. Ever since your family has made this land your home, your kind is very well known to have control over this country. Pack and me are just simply trying to survive. We have no say in the matter when it comes to the grand scheme of things, when it comes to the bigger packs out there. Izuku remained quiet as he's in deep thought. Tracking these skinwalkers won't be a hard thing to do with my tracking abilities. There's too many unknown factors about the specific group of skinwalkers. I have a bad feeling about this, but I can't show any weakness. These werewolves might be somewhat allies currently, but that's never a good idea to show any sign of weakness in front of pure blood lichens, no less. Can you help us? As Izuku was broken out of his basically inner thoughts, be able to give you assistance. It would look bad if for one of our allies asked for assistance and I declined. It would look bad on my city and on my family's honor. Me and my sister will track down these changelings, and I'll have some of my blood knights give your compound any resources it needs to get back on their feet. More than welcome to accompany us when we investigate these skinwalkers. I have no doubt you would have accompanied us, regardless, if I was against it or not. You werewolves tend to be the stubborn type. I'm wrong there. So when do we leave? Give me 20 to 30 minutes. I have a few things I need to set up. Please excuse me. Izuku walked out of the room and head outside to get some fresh air, and to made a couple of calls using magic circles to contact Victoria and inform her of the situation. A vampire, your brother is quite interesting. I wasn't expecting your brother to be this odd. He is. I worry about him sometimes. He gets so consumed in his work. I have no doubt you've heard this before, but I've never seen a vampire like him before. I've seen my share of bloodsuckers. You included, my dear. But you Midoriyas are a very mysterious clan of vampires. My darling little brother is what you call a Neko-vampire. He's a type of vampire catfolk that was driven pretty much to its extinction. There's not much. They're known to be quite dangerous to humans and vampires alike. What do you mean? Unlike other purebloods, vampire clans, my dear brother is the type of vampire that's able to feed upon humans and vampires alike. He gets the same amount of nutrients from a vampire feasting upon human blood when he drinks on vampire blood. My brother is not really the type to feed upon a living person or a vampire. He finds the whole process of finding a prey, then getting them to agree by simply convincing them or putting them through hypnosis. He finds the whole effort to be tedious. Not saying he won't. He's a vampire after all. We're hunters after all, at the end of the day. but that's not really well known. He has trained to keep his instincts in check. Well, there's one thing you need to know. You would rather have him as an ally. He would be a very dangerous enemy to have. He's not as forgiving as me and my mother. I'm not surprised my werewolf instincts was telling me to be very cautious. He probably has similar feelings. He's never been the biggest fan of werewolves, but he's become a lot more civil with your kind. I noticed, for a brief second, a small bit of hatred to be felt. It was only for an instant, but as an alpha, I was clearly able to notice it. I'm not going to pretend I know what a Neko is, but I know for certain he'll be a very valuable ally. Only natural. He's Midoriya. He's a Midoriya after all. Sister, everything's in order as he cut his mental link with Izumi. Izuku waited outside for his sister and Alice, the alpha of the wolf pack that happens to live to the closest to his city that's located just outside of his territory. Of course, the human living in the city above the vampire city are unaware that there's a vampire city below their feet. There's no plan to change that. There's one thing he's very serious about is keeping the existence of vampire from the human race. Humans only a rare few humans know of their existence, and he's planning to keep it that way. The moment Alice and Izumi made it outside, Izuku shifted back into his cat form and jumped into his sister's arms. Things all set, Alice. My people should be here in the next 30 to 40 minutes with all the necessary resources. Everything will be overseen by my commander of the Blood Knights, Scarlet. She'll be able to heal any of your kin that's unable to heal from their own healing factor by themselves. Shall we go? My internal gratitude for helping us in such a way and going so far. I believe it would be best for us to embark before the scent gets cold. Two Vampire and Alpha traveled away, followed the trail of the Skinwalkers that attacked previously. Lucky for them, the scent of the creatures were very easy to notice and able to track. Track eventually led to one of the many abandoned cities that scattered all about around this area. Just out of the pack's territory. The moment they entered the city, several hooded vampires jumped down, surrounding all three of them. It seems like we're in luck, boys, to think the alpha of the Silvermoon pack, and two Midoriyas no less. The vampires had heard rumors about the vampire city run by a talking cat, so we'll be able to kill the oldest Midoriya. We'll be able to kill one of the council members, the youngest of the Midoriya family. I didn't think we'd be able to kill a council member so soon. Izuku jumped out of his sister's arms and shifted back into his normal form. So you must be the rogues I've been hearing so much about. I didn't think you would be involved in this, but I should have figured. That we are, you pure blood scum. Once we're done taking out the picture, we'll hunt down the rest of the council members. And we'll put our race back on top. Humans should be subjugated by vampires, not not protected like their newborn babies. Once we eliminate every member of that little council of yours, we can finally put our race on top. So we care if the lambs figure out we even exist. We're superior to them. Their food. Izuku's hair was covering his face, including with his hood over, covering his eyes. If the vampires could see, you could see a smile on his face. After the rant was over, all the other vampires could hear was, "Thank you." Then immediately Izuku burst out laughing, surprising the hooded vampires, including his two companions. To think helping out a fellow ally would lead me to the rogue factor of vampires that's been causing carnage. It's just the icing on the cake. The fact that you brazenly proclaim you plan to murder me, that means I can eliminate you, all of you, and the council can't do shit. Izuku bolted forward, appeared right in front of one of them, as he was shot like a rocket into a nearby building, as Izuku punched the vampire in the face. Then he immediately began to shoot out his red bone shards at the vampires, forcing them to separate, giving Izumi and Alice less numbers to deal with, as Izuku took the larger number of hooded vampires. Izuku didn't mind one bit taking the larger number of foes. He's been extremely pleased that this little venture of his led to some of the ones that are responsible for causing camp carnage with the humans, manipulate things in the shadows, making the conflict to continue in the Silver War. Has no doubt they're connected with the Skinwalkers. Once the immediate threat is dealt with, he plans to figure out what exactly is going on. Once he knows what he's dealing with, then he'll eliminate them. The larger group of hooded vampires rush Izuku with insane speed. This is a vampire pure blood battle after all. While dodging, he noticed his dancing partners are creating blood weapons, using blood magic, using their own blood, making Izuku try another approach in their battle by pulling out a bright red bone sword out of the palm of his hand, then charge forward, blocking and counterattacking with his own bone sword at their blood swords, and using his superior reflexes and feline abilities in his movements to easily overpower them, forcing them to go on a defensive side. They immediately jump backwards to get some distance from each other, as you can see cuts and slashes all over Izuku's clothes, but his opponents are far worse off, as you can see cuts over their bodies as their bodies slowly regenerated from being pure blood, regeneration because they're vampires. You know this plan of yours to kill all the council members are folly. You know that, right? What do you mean, abomination? In a quote-unquote superior being, you're being quite childish, name-calling. It's just a simple fact to think you have the goal to try to kill me. You must know that I am the second strongest in the whole council. Only one is more powerful than myself is my actual mother. I wondered, did you bite more than you can chew? You'll know you're not going to survive this. Don't get me wrong. This is nothing personal, but I can't have a rogue faction of vampires causing trouble, exposing our existence to humanity. That simply won't do. It's just business. My unfortunate foes. You've been a thorn in my side for far too long. To keep instigating the conflict in the Civil War is unforgivable. We are not meant to meddle into humanity, period. Unfortunately, I have rules I have to follow, and you morons have broken such rules. Now I'm no longer chained by the council. Give you your proper punishment, and your punishment is true death. A black bone shard was shot out towards one of the hooded vampires. The moment it made contact with the vampire's head, it immediately began to decay him right in front of all his comrades. Izuku threw his bone shard so fast that they couldn't even notice it. For a pureblood vampire, that is a feat upon itself. You bastard, you killed my brother. As the remaining hooded vampires threw out all reason out of the window and charged blindly out of pure rage, making their movements very sloppy and easy to counter. Izuku immediately took advantage of their mental state. You better get used to it, traitors. He won't be the last one I kill. Enraging his opponents even further, just to make sure they make mistakes. In the midst of their battle, Izuku noticed they were composing themselves, no longer guided by their rage, and surrounding Izuku on all sides, ready to attack Izuku all at once. Izuku can't help but remind himself of his lesson from his mother, as we go into a short flashback where he was in his 3rd year of training with his mother. He was surrounded by exact copies of his mother, all holding practice swords. Inko might be a vicious, cold-hearted vampire, but she's always been a bit more gentle while handling her youngest son. During his training, she trained him, but not train him to a insane degree like she did her daughter. She doesn't want to push him too far and trigger a blood rage. Neko vampires are more prone to go into blood rage if they feel threatened and cornered. It's just instinct for them. Inko has been training her son to control his instincts from a young age, so she is confident that he won't go in a blood rage during this training exercise. He's getting more better at controlling the blood rage itself. He can actually activate it on will. You've done well. You've done well to this point, but what will you do when you're outnumbered? You might be powerful for a pureblood vampire. We might be powerful for a pureblood vampire family, but that doesn't make us invincible. There will come in times where you be surrounded, your choices will be very limited. This training exercise will help you to get better acquainted being surrounded and come up with a solid strategy by pure instinct alone. Inko command all of her doubles that she made with blood magic to attack Izuku all at once. Her blood clones are holding back, of course. The blood clones were surprised. It's clearly evident he's getting better in the midst of battle. At first he couldn't even dodge or block an attack, but now he's doing both. even parrying away their practice swipes with their practice swords. Even managed to counterattack a few of them. Inko was extremely pleased. I expect nothing less of you, my boy, but let's kick it up a notch. I know you're ready for this. Suddenly all the blood clones created blood swords. Izuku, seeing this, created a bone sword by pulling it out of his palm of his hand. Izuku extremely focused. He knows his mother is going easy on him once again, but he can't get distracted or make a single mistake. He would rather not get stabbed. Izuku started to do fine when they charge at him, but they slowly push him back, forcing him to move on pure instinct. If it wasn't for his feline reflexes, he would have already been stabbed a long time ago. When Izuku was cornered on all sides, a red bone tendril shot out of Izuku's body, piercing all the blood cones in the heart, dispelling them into blood. Inko wasn't expecting for his bone abilities to involve in such a manner in such a time in the midst of battle. Izuku walked over to her son, barely conscious, as she picked him up and walked back inside. You just unlocked... Sorry, let's try it again. You just unlocked something pretty interesting, my boy. This ability would be perfect to implement in your training when you're surrounded. We're going to perfect that skill of yours. You're going to be a terror on the battlefield. Izuku by now is extremely exhausted as he reverted back into his cat form. Flashback as all of the hooded vampires swung downwards with their blood swords, only to see their attack get blocked by a red bone sword that Izuku's wielding, while they're trying to put pressure by pushing downwards with their sword. As their blood weapon is grinding against the bone weapon, Izuku smiled as black tendrils shot out of his body, piercing all of the hooded vampires at the same time, decaying them as the wind scattered their remains. Izuku noticed his sister and the Alpha are still fighting their opponents. He waited for them to finish up, while the black bone tendrils sink back into Izuku's body. They continued to, after their battle, they continued to follow the trail in silence by jumping on the rooftop of the buildings, eventually getting to the middle of the city, of the abandoned city, to see a familiar sight. Izuku narrowed his eyes, seeing white alongside some pure-blooded vampires, warlocks, humans. By how they're dressed, they're clearly hunters, and several skinwalkers scattered all about. Izuku even saw a few werewolves among them. As he could barely overhear what they're saying. They're too far away, but if they go any further, their presence will be clearly noted by everyone down there, and that would be specifically suicide. The numbers are just not in their favor, and Izuku knew that. Let's get out of here before we're noticed. After sneaking out of the abandoned city, unnoticed, they returned back to the Alpha compound. Alice, Izumi, looked towards Izuku, who's leaning against the wall, deep in thought. So what exactly is the plan? Can't simply leave. God knows what they're up to. There's several different factors involved. This is clearly more complex than I originally thought. But I can't leave your pack unprotected. Not saying that I don't believe you can protect yourself. I understand what you meant. I take no offense. Few months, I'll station a couple of my Blood Knights right outside of your of your territory to keep an eye on the abandoned city, and they'll update me. Then I'll give you any updates I get from my knights. It looks like I'll be stuck on the surface for a while. We're gonna be here for a while. Please stay in one of our guest rooms. Bad upon my pack if I allowed one of my allies to camp just outside my territory without giving proper hospitality. We're allies after all. And I'm friends with your sister, so it's only natural. So we'll take you up on that offer. I'll show my brother to the guest room. I know where they're at. Izuku nodded at the female alpha and followed his sister out of the meeting room and into one of the guest rooms. Izuku examined the big room with the huge bed. Izumi lay down on the bed. Exactly are you doing, sister? Going to bed, silly. Don't look at me like that. It's not like we haven't done before. Stop being difficult and go to bed. Sighed to himself and shift into his cat form. He knows how affectionate his sister towards him can be. The moment he shifted and landed on the bed, Izumi grabbed hold of Izuku and grabbed him like he was a warm teddy bear. You know, I think I'm a little too old for this. It doesn't matter how old you are, little brother. You're never gonna be too old for me to cuddle you. You're so soft in your cat form. I can't help it. Izuku and Izumi has always been affectionate towards each other. Nothing romantic. Not saying that doesn't occur in the vampire world. It's just they don't have that type of relationship. They're overly affectionate towards each other. Well, mostly Izumi. But Izumi never crossed the line. But deep down, Izuku enjoys the affection. He won't outright admit it. Do you have a psychic bond, after all? Considering they have, psychic link between each other, it's only natural they would be closer than normal siblings, but not going too far into it. All of the Midoriyas are affectionate towards each other the same way. So we're going to cut it. Hope you guys have a good night and day. Judge my time zones, and I'll catch you in the next video.